Hey everyone, Jack Keeper here, and in this video we are going to do a follow-up on my previous video. Previous video was an overview of Godot Game Engine, and in this video we are going to take it a step further. We're going to create a ship. So this will be an asset that you would use in a game. What we're going to do is we're going to open up an app called Inkscape, but you can really use any app you wish. It can be GIMP, Photoshop, Krita, whatever you like. My preference in this case is Inkscape. I'm going to use that, and that is a free open source software that's available at inkscape.com, and I left the link below in the description so you can easily download it if you wish to use it. So we're going to import this ship after we create it. So we're going to create the ship, and then we're going to bring it into Godot Game Engine, and then we're going to give it an exhaust plume like you see there. And so this exhaust plume will be completely done by using a particle emitter in Godot. And then, as you see, it's accelerating there. That's from hitting the up arrow key. So we're going to write some simple code to hook that up to the up arrow key so it accelerates. So this should actually be kind of a fun project. Let's go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to go ahead and open up Inkscape. And then I'll just make this full screen here. And I'm going to go ahead and just keep the document the way it is. And I'm going to come over here. And so once we complete this picture, then I'm going to just export it as a PNG file, and then we'll bring it into Godot and continue. So I'm going to hit my Bezier curve, X object and all that. But we're going to use this. So let's start out, and I'm just going to draw a basic shape, I guess you might say. And this is going to be kind of like a side view. So it would be kind of like a side shooter kind of style. So I'll just kind of bring it out. Almost kind of like what you would see in an older arcade game like Defender. So this is kind of going on the premise that we are creating like a arcade style 2D game. Okay, now I'm going to close it off here by double clicking. All right, yeah, that might work. Almost looks like a race car. But it will take shape, trust me. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this node editor here. And then I'm going to click on my shape, click, and then I'm going to just push it up and round it up a bit. So we'll round that edge, and then I'm going to come down here to the front and do the same thing, round these off. Yeah, that's pretty good. And then back here, I think I'm going to recess that in. If I push it out, yeah, I think recess maybe is a little better. So I'll just kind of push that in slightly. And a lot of this part is really just kind of eyeballing things here and adjusting. And I'm going to give it some color. So I'll click there, 10% gray. That seems pretty good. So we'll go with that. Go back and reselect my tool. And I'm going to add in a windscreen. I guess that's what you would call it on a spaceship. I don't know. Okay, and then hit my selector tool again, my node, and then I'm going to round these up. Give it a little more realistic shape here. Okay, that looks good. And let's give that a color, maybe a blackish color, dark gray, maybe a little darker. Yeah, almost black. I think that'll work. And I'll just kind of push that out a little bit. I'm clicking on the point and dragging. Okay. Now I'm going to maybe draw like an intake slot or something here, just to kind of give it some design. I'm just kind of winging this, so I don't really have any idea what I'm gonna do. But you know, that's half the fun. Just kind of use your imagination and go as you go. So I'm going to select that now and maybe make that a red. And I think I'll copy and paste another one. So I'm going to do Control C, Control V, and then I'll just slide that over there. Got my magnet on, so I think I'm just going to bump it up with my up arrow key. So I'll just bump. There we go. And I definitely don't want them that wide, so let me zoom in a little. I just use my mouse wheel to zoom in. And I'm just going to shrink that. So when you select that with the selector, then you can resize it. If you select it again, then it'll let you rotate it. But right now, I'm just going to resize. And then slide it over. And yeah, that's a pretty good start, I guess. It's kind of starting to look like a ship. Narrow that up a little bit more. Now I'll take my node selector here and select this guy, and then I'm just going to kind of curve it up a little. And same with the bottom one. I'll select that guy, push it up, and then push the bottom up. Kind of give it a little bit of a curve. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, and this looks kind of kinked right here. Not real smooth, so I'm going to select that, and I'm going to select this point, and I'm just going to delete it. I'm going to press my delete key, and that smoothens it right out. That looks pretty good. And I'll probably do that in a few more spots too. Because a lot of times, after you get your initial shape, you can delete excess points, and I'm going to push that down a little. That looks better. Yeah, I like that. Okay, it's starting to take shape. Maybe I'll round these ends off here on these intake slots. That's kind of what I'm thinking we could call those. Okay, that looks good. All right, I'm just gonna go down here and I'm gonna turn off that stroke for a minute and see how that looks without a stroke on it. So I'll do the same here. And zoom out. You know, actually I kind of like it better with the stroke in there. Kind of gave it more depth. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that back. Yeah, I think I like that better. So we'll go with that, and then I'll do the same thing here. Okay. Yeah. I think I'm going to put something back here. It needs something there, you know, maybe I'm going to reshape that a little bit too, but I think I'm going to put something back there like an exhaust reinforcement, and I'm going to just push this out a little bit, kind of straighten it and lengthen maybe. Maybe push that out. There we go. That might be a little better. And then maybe push that up or down. See, part of creating stuff like this is just kind of pushing your edges around and see what looks cool. And sometimes it'll build itself. Okay, now I'm going to add in just like make something to offset this back here. Can be like a reinforced area for the intake maybe, or I mean the exhaust. So I'm going to just kind of line that up and then maybe push that out to kind of look more rounded. And let's make that maybe a darker gray. Maybe like that, 30%. Yeah, I think that'll work. Nice. Okay, let's see, what else can we do? I think I'm going to give a gradient here. So I'm going to go up here and select my gradient tool. And then I'm just going to pull this right to the back. And actually this light area you see is not actually white, even though it looks white, it's transparent. And we don't want transparent, that's not good. So I'm going to go down here and select a whitish color, you know, very super light gray. Okay, so that should kind of give it, yeah, makes it look better, have a little gradient in there. I'm going to hit my node selector, and this looks kind of rough and bumpy, so I'm going to delete that point. And that smoothened it right out. Much better. Okay, starting to take shape a little. Now I'm going to select this guy and delete that point, because that's a little bumpy too. I'd like to have that smoother, so delete that, and that looks better. Now let's just kind of push it up a little. Maybe slide it around and just kind of find a good spot to where it works. Maybe lower it and then bring that up. And then maybe arch this a little. Yeah, that gives it more depth. And let's slant it up a little. Cool. I think that might work. And now down here, let's maybe get rid of that point. That was kind of bumpy there. Yeah, that's nice and smooth. Looks more civilized. Now let's maybe do something in the front. Maybe we could put a nose cone there. So reselect my Bezier tool and click, click, and make a triangle here and close it. And then we'll maybe make that a dark red. And now I need to select my node tool again, zoom in, and we'll just kind of push these edges out to match the outside of the jet. Cool. And maybe push that up just a little more. Kind of inch it up a little. Yeah. And I guess if I was going to use this in a game, that's probably where my laser bullets would come from. Let me just kind of pull that out just to give it a little. Oops, what did I do? Okay, Control Z. I must have bumped it down a level or something. Okay, so we'll pull that back, and that gives it some depth, roundness. Cool. And I think maybe I'll delete that point too, maybe. Not sure. Okay. Let's give this a gradient. So use my gradient tool again, and remember that light area is transparent, which we don't want. If I were to click back here, then we could change the red to a different color, but I'm going to click on this node, and we're going to maybe make it white again. Actually, I wonder what it would look like if we had a different color in there, other than the very light gray, the off-white. So let's select this light node again. And, what about blue? Kind of interesting, but how about yellow? Yeah. I kind of like that for some reason. So we'll go ahead and just kind of go with that, I think. And something down here still kind of bugs me. Can't really quite put my finger on it, but I'm going to select this guy, select my node tool, and I'm going to try ditching that point. Yeah. Okay, let me just pull it up a little. Yeah, slide it. There we go. Yeah. Okay, I think that's looking a little more streamlined. Yeah, I like it better without that point. So kind of zooming out here to get an overall feel of how this is coming. I think I'm going to mellow these out a little bit and kind of shrink them down. So I used my selector here, and same here, just kind of shorten those up a bit. Yeah, that's kind of better. Probably could use a better angle though. So I'll click this again, and then you can see that it's in a rotate mode. So I'm going to grab the end here and just kind of tilt the whole thing over. Do the same here, click it twice, and notch it down a bit. Okay, now I think I will still thin these up a little more. Still kind of thick. And then bring them closer together. Maybe just kind of tweak it a little. Yeah, they're more parallel now. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and use my tool, and I'm going to just kind of put a decoration back here just to make it a little more interesting, give the back a better look. And what color? Maybe a blue, dark. How about a different shade? Lots of colors to choose from. Yeah, let's try this one. Yeah, that works. Kind of got lucky with that. Okay. Let's remove the stripe. Yeah, it looks better without the stroke, so we'll leave that without the stroke. Then I'm going to copy and paste. I just did a Control-C, Control-V. And we'll select this guy and maybe see how it looks. Maybe right there. That's kind of cool. Now I'll just select both of these, so I'll just hit this and then click. Oops, should be Shift, not Control. So select one, then Shift, and then select the other. And I just bumped it up with my up arrow key, and that seems like a pretty good spot. Yeah, I think that might work. Okay. You know, it's kind of simple, but what the heck, it works for our demo. So now I'm going to export this. So I'm going to go ahead and we could, and by default it's on drawing, but I think I'm going to do a selection and make us a smaller file. So I'm just going to select everything. All I did was use my mouse and left click and drag. And I'm going to save it just to my Godot projects. And we'll just think of something really original like ship. PNG. And so that will be our save location. And now I'm going to scooch out of the way. See that little export button? That export button is what you click afterwards, and then it will save it to your hard drive. So now I opened up my Explorer here, and there's our ship. So if I double clicked on it, it would open up in a image viewer. So this is what we're going to import into Godot. So let me jump back here and launch our Godot app. And then we'll create a new project. And let's just call this, well, since it's a spaceship, I guess we could give it a space name like space thing. Yeah, that's kind of lame. Maybe space fighter, how about? There we go. And we'll save it in our Godot projects. So we'll go ahead and now we'll create a folder and we want to call it Space Fighter. We'll just give it the same name. And I guess we can stick with the 3.0. If I was going to do a web app, then, you know, I'd want to select 2.0. But yeah, we'll just make it a desktop thing here. Okay. And let's go to our 2D view. And so the first thing we want to do is create our 2D scene. So we'll click that, and then it gives us a node 2D, which is our parent node, I guess you'd want to call it. So I'm clicking the plus sign here, and we're going to add another node. We're going to load in a sprite. So this would be under our node 2D. So let's go ahead and create that. And you can name that sprite too, like call it ship if you want. I think I'll just leave it though. So we'll go to texture here, and then I want to select new image texture. And then down here, we want to put in our image, which is, where are we at? This guy. So I'm going to copy that and put that into our space project folder. All right, now it should appear over here, and there it is. So let's take this guy and we're just going to drag it right up into that texture window. That's what we really ought to do. And then you can see that it shows up right up in the very upper left corner of our view. So let's drag that into the middle and maybe slide it over a little. Okay, so we got our sprite. I'm going to go ahead and save this scene. And by default it's node 2D scene file, tscn. Let's just call it ship and hit save. Okay, so now we have our scene and our sprite saved. I'm going to go ahead and launch it. It's asking if we want to make this our main scene. Typically you wouldn't have an object like a ship as a main scene, but since this is the only thing we have, we'll just say yes. And it's something you can always change at some point, like if I was going to take this further and make a game around it. So let's slide this guy over. And now we're going to work on the exhaust plume. So we're going to go in here and get a Particle 2D node here. And there it is. I typed it in the search and came up, Particles 2D. So there's our particle emitter. So I'm going to bring this down kind of close to the exhaust port. Make it easier to see what's going on. So under here, under process material, we want to select new particles emitter. So you can see now it's emitting downwards. So we want to change that direction. So we want to go to node 2D transform, and we'll make that 90 degrees. And there we go. Now it's going the right way. That's kind of how we want it. Cool, that'll work. Now let's move up here to, let's see. Yeah, a little rusty. Yeah, let's make our emission shape a spear shape. That'll kind of give it a a more realistic, and then crank that up a bit, our radius. That gives us a better spread. Yeah, so I got it around 9.83. That kind of works, so that should do it, give or take. And for our direction, I think, see what happens if we slide this flatness here. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Just kind of experiment with this a little bit, our spread. Yeah, I think we'll leave that around 26. I think originally it was 45, which was not bad either, really. Let's see, our velocity. Yeah, not seeing a ton of difference there. Again, just kind of testing out a few things here. Okay, let's give it some color. We'll come back to the velocity part later. And let's mess with the color a little bit, kind of make it more of a fire-ish kind of look. Maybe a little orangish. We're going to kind of put some variance in the colors anyway, so just kind of want to get it close. Okay. I think that'll work for the moment. I'm going to jump down here. Here's our hue variation, so we can kind of vary our colors. So like if I move our variation up a little bit, it'll kind of, yeah, it'll kind of go one way or another. And then let's increase our scale here, make these a little bigger, maybe 3. Actually, that's, yeah, that's not the scale I was thinking of. I don't think. Let's set these at 2. Maybe make the Y 3. And slide that, get it a little closer to the exhaust port there. Yeah. Okay. I guess that gives us a little more length. Okay, I'm going up here to time here. And here we have our speed scale. So this is where we can speed up our particle emission. So yeah, I think for now we can leave it there, around 1.69, and let's increase our amount. That'll give us more particles, maybe 16. That's looking better. Okay, I can go with that. How about if we did 50? Wow! Yeah, kind of like it. Put a little randomness in there. Nah. Okay, let's go down to our, let's see, angular velocity. We want to go here next, I think. Here's our scale. This is what I want. Okay, So let's bump that up to 2. There we go. Yeah, that's better. That's kind of what I was looking for. And then maybe randomize it slightly. Yeah, like 0.3 maybe. How about if we did that bigger? Our scale. Yeah, 4 is even maybe better. How about 5? Or 6. Must think big. And we'll just slide that back a little bit. Okay, that's starting to look like an exhaust plume now. And maybe just jump our randomness up a little. Yeah, it might be a little too random. Yeah, maybe not. Change our color a little. Make it more yellowish. And then let's increase our variation, maybe. That's interesting. Okay, back it off a little. I guess maybe somewhere right in there would work. And our range, if we crank that up a little bit, you can see more orangish and yellow in there. So let's redden that out a tad. Yeah, okay. I think that'll work there. We're getting closer. So kind of get a better overall view here. And let's just play it real quick, see how it looks. Yeah, it's coming along. Okay. So let's go over here to our angular velocity again. Well, let's see. See, everything's kind of going. Let's change our angle here because everything's just kind of parallel. So let's randomize our angle a little. See what 1 does. Maybe 0.5. Yeah, 1 seemed kind of harsh. And then let's change our angle, maybe like 45 degrees. There we go. Yeah, I like that. That's good. And we'll have our randomization here. Maybe just kind of take that out. Have it at 0. Yeah, I think it's coming together. Let's take a look at it again. Okay, I think we're kind of getting into where we want to be. Just going to slide this out a little more. Just kind of, yeah. Okay, select our particle emitter and see what else we can do to just kind of perfect it. I'm going to add a gradient, I think. So to do that, we want to go into our color ramp and select new gradient texture. And then we want to actually click on the gradient texture, and then it will create another field underneath. We'll select new gradient, and then we got to select that gradient. If you click here and just kind of do one of these, it's not going to do you any good. But if you actually select it, then you get the gradient underneath. So here we can adjust that. So I'm going to double click that guy, and you can also slide that too. But you're going to double click it and then go into our color selector, and let's look at some of these reds. Yeah, it's kind of cool. And then this is the other side, and instead of being white, let's kind of make it maybe a yellowish color. And then maybe a little too yellow. Let's back out a little bit, lighten it up. Yeah, that's looking more realistic. Cool. And see, you can slide these sliders here and change the degree of your variance in your gradient. So that's something you can kind of just toy with and eyeball and see what looks good to you. And too much darkness when I go out that way with the reds, or yeah, the red. So just keep that on the edge there. But I kind of like the yellow slid out a little, so that looks good. Okay. And I'm just kind of going to adjust this randomness on the scale just to see. I guess that's fine. And the variation, hard to make up my mind. These are just things you kind of eyeball. Well, that looks kind of neat, the blue there, but I guess I'll just stay realistic. It is kind of fun to look at the colors. The colors. Okay. I think we're kind of getting into where we want to be with this look here. Just run that again. Yeah, it looks good. It's a little short, little close to the exhaust. So let me just slide that back a little. Just grab it, pull it back. And yeah, I think that'll work right in there. That's better. All right. Zoom out, get an overall look. Cool. Let's attach some code to this. First of all, I'm going to drag this up into the sprite so it becomes a child of the sprite, because we want to have that sprite as a parent to this particle accelerator, so they're bound together and we can then code. So I'm going to go down here and hit script. So when we click on that, it'll open up another window or a field, and we want to select new script. And by default this particle is 2D, but let's just call it something else like ship, or I mean exhaust, because this is our particles emitter. So we'll just call it exhaust.gd and hit create. And then as you can see, we have code that's in here already that's automatically generated, our function ready and our process. And of course the process is being called every frame, so it kind of acts like a loop almost, but it calls it in every frame of the animation. And so this is what we want to go to, because this is just going to be a simple bit of code. And what we want to do is we want to push our up arrow key and make this thing accelerate. So if we go up here, right here you can see that we have our speed scale, and this is the variable that we want to use in our script. So speed scale is something we want to remember. So first of all, we want to tie something to our input, which will be our up arrow key. And so to do that, since particles 2D is our actual emitter that this script is tied to, I don't really have to you know, call to a location or anything, I can just refer to it as self, and that will be this emitter. So we'll say if input, which is our key, action, press, then we want to select UI up. That will be our up arrow. Then we'll put a colon in here, go to the next line. And just like Python, inside our if statement, an indentation is what we use instead of a bracket like in some languages. So we're going to say self set, and then what's our property again? Speed scale. So we want to set our speed scale variable. So in quotes, we're going to type that out. Actually, I don't need to put the path in there because, like I said, this is the particles 2D. So speed scale, that's our variable. And then we want to put a comma, and our second argument will be the speed, which we'll set it at 5. It was at 1.69 by default. So if we're not pushing the arrow, then we have the else. We'll set the speed scale at where it was before, which was 1.69, I believe. Okay, so now if we launch this real quick, when we press the up arrow, I'll go ahead and press it. And it doesn't really look like it's doing anything. Okay, I must have messed something up. Speed scale, yeah, the set seems okay. How about the input? Oh, okay. There's our problem. It shouldn't be action press. Jeez. Actually, it should be is action pressed. It's a Boolean. Okay, so let's jump back in here real quick. And I want to set our idle a little smaller than this because that's a pretty fast stream there for not thrusting. So I'm going to lower my lifetime here to 0.5. That'll shorten our burst here. And then in our speed scale, I think I'm going to back that off to maybe 0.69. So we'll drop it down by about 1. And that kind of slows down the acceleration too, the speed of the particles. Yeah, that looks more civilized. So I think we're going to have that as our default state there. So we're going to set our lifetime in here as well dynamically. And so we're going to put in self set lifetime, which is the same variable in the other page there, and set it at 0.5. And then when the up key is not pressed, then we also need to put the lifetime back. Oh, and our speed scale default will now be 0.69. And actually our lifetime up here should be 1, really. Okay, and so our speed scale, we'll put a 0 in front of there. And then we'll set our default lifetime to have it go back to 0, I mean 0.5, or 0.5 actually, yeah. It's better to have a 0 in there, I think. Okay, now that looks more civilized. Let's go ahead. I had that running, so I stopped it. So let's go start it again. And that's looking good. Hit the up arrow and see what happens. Wahoo! We have acceleration. Check it out. Yep, so that worked. That did the trick. So, I think that was a fun project. A simple little thing. Now we have an asset that we can use in the future if we want to make some kind of game involving a spaceship to shoot. So yeah, I just couldn't resist following up on my last video there. So I really enjoyed that, and I hope you did too. And remember, don't forget to hit that like button if you like the video, and hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.